Andy Isaacson, member of the Taft class of 1994, is a journalist, educator, and producer. His writing and photography have appeared in the New York Times, National Geographic, and numerous other publications. Stories that span every continent and various topics, from the science of climate change to the social history of tea. Isaacson is currently on the faculty at the School of the New York Times Summer Academy, where he teaches immersive journalism courses to high school students. Isaacson also works with Shared Studios, which brings together diverse voices from around the world through immersive technology called portals. Portals are physical installations that allow visitors to transcend distance and difference, fostering empathy-driven dialogue and research for institutions such as the United Nations, Harvard, and Stanford.
Isaacson also co-founded Camping to Connect, a BIPOC-led nonprofit that guides young men of color from urban environments into nature, promoting leadership and connection. He produced Woodhood, an award-winning short documentary exploring race, identity, and the power of nature, which will be screened in Mr. Taft's dining room during both lunch blocks today. The film is just 15 minutes long, leaving time for questions and conversations with Mr. Isaacson after each screening. Isaacson's work as a journalist, educator, and storyteller exemplifies the power of connection and understanding, core ideas in our exploration of how do we know another person. His journey reminds us that true understanding comes not just from listening to someone's story, but from stepping into their world, whether it is through portals that connect strangers across continents or through pages of a deeply personal narrative. Isaacson's work challenges us to break barriers, bridge divides, and embrace the unique complexity in every person we meet. Please join us in giving a warm welcome to Andy Isaacson.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for having me this morning. So this was me 30 years ago at my Taft graduation. I now refer to that as my long hair phase, which some of you in the room might be able to relate to. I'm delighted to be here with you this morning, and I want to share some highlights of my professional journey from that moment until now. And I'll also try to share some of the things that I've learned about the question that David Brooks poses in the book that you all have been discussing this semester, How to Know a Person, a question so central to the work that journalists do. I've spent over 15 years as a writer and a photographer for publications like the New York Times and National Geographic, traveling the globe in search of compelling people, places, and stories. A path that has taken me to every continent and every ocean and introduced me to a diverse array of characters and cultures. Here's a little mashup of that journey that I once commissioned an illustrator to draw for my website, and I'm wondering, can anyone spot me in this scene? Call it out if you can. What's that? Nope. Green jacket. You can collect your prize after the... But let me rewind the story a little and explain how I got here. I was born and raised in New York City, and even as a kid, I remember being really fascinated by the world. Lining my bedroom bookshelf were books about bears and whales and Roman history, as well as issues of National Geographic magazine and every volume of the encyclopedia. It's Wikipedia before the internet. This is not to say that I was always comfortable with the idea of exploring the world. In fact, as you can see in this booklet I drew about my first family trip out of the country at 8 years old, the idea of going to an unfamiliar place where I couldn't speak the language did provoke some anxiety. I spent my summers during Taft exploring parts of the United States. One summer I lived with a crew of student volunteers high up in the Colorado wilderness, building a hiking trail on national forest land. Another summer I participated in a program that involved staying with a Navajo family in New Mexico. But it was here in Bingham, actually, during a morning meeting just like this one, that a visiting speaker delivered a talk that would change the course of my life. I realize I'm setting a high bar for this one. The man's name was Cornelius Bull. Bull was an early proponent of the gap year for high school students. He felt that the perspective, knowledge, and skills that young people gain through a gap year are critical to their growth and their identity. From this stage, Bull encouraged us to follow our bliss, and he presented a sample of exotic experiences we could pursue during a gap year, like volunteering at an animal rescue center in Costa Rica or a nature reserve in Ecuador, or living with a family in Italy. Bull was telling us it's okay to step out from the trajectory that is expected of you, that you can invent your own path in life. This was a message that resonated with me. The real world was big. I wanted to see more of it and discover my own place in it. So I deferred my enrollment to Brown University, and I lived that next winter at a ski resort in Colorado, working as a children's ski instructor and cleaning condos for extra cash. In the summer, I backpacked by myself across northern Italy. By the time I started college that fall, my world had become much larger. At Brown, I explored a wide range of subjects from anthropology to political science, and studied and traveled in South America for a semester. I graduated without any clear direction of what to pursue next. But in the Ecuadorian rainforest, I had come face to face with a monkey and was awestruck by the human-like familiarity of its face. I was compelled to spend more time around primates. So that's how I ended up here right after college, at a conservation center for gibbons in Southern California, where each day, from a tiny trailer, I woke up to their melodious territorial songs. My job consisted of feeding the apes and cleaning their poop. It wasn't glamorous, and it certainly wasn't the aspiration of most Ivy League graduates. But through my close interaction with gibbons, I developed a sensitivity to their moods and feelings and nonverbal communication. I became attuned to their subtle emotional cues. In a way, working with apes allowed me to hone skills that would help me to see and understand people more deeply. I moved up to San Francisco and got a job at a large public relations agency. It's there that I brushed up against the media for the first time, interacting with journalists on behalf of my corporate clients. They seemed to exhibit an authentic way of being in the world that I recognized in myself. It was clear that I wasn't cut out for a career in corporate public relations, but here's something I've learned about the professional journey. There's no such thing as wasted time. Every experience offers a chance for growth and transformation, a chance to learn something valuable that you can transfer to the next thing. I'd learned in that PR job how to pitch stories, how to write clearly, concisely, and in a professional way. These were all skills that would come in handy later once I decided to pursue journalism, a decision I would only arrive at after a year of casting myself out across Asia with a backpack and a guidebook on a quest to find my purpose. In a rural part of Thailand, I trekked from village to village in search of wild gibbons. I stayed with yak herders in the remote mountains of Kyrgyzstan and shared meals with young Tibetans. Immersed in the cultures I explored, I was in my element. I also found, through writing dispatches to family and friends back home, that I had a knack for telling stories about the worlds that I encountered. Back in San Francisco, I fashioned my own journalism education through internships. I first at CNN, then the local NPR and PBS affiliates, and then the Center for Investigative Reporting, where I got to work on stories alongside veteran investigative journalists. But I didn't feel there was any one media outlet that could contain my diverse interests, so I branched out as a freelancer, which I felt would afford me the chance and the freedom to chase my curiosity. David Brooks, in How to Know a Person, talks about the importance of having an explorer's heart. This means living with openness, wonder, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. This means constantly asking questions and seeking to understand the world and people around you. Throughout my career as a journalist, my explorer's heart has guided me to the front lines of scientific discovery. I spent weeks in the Peruvian jungle with a team of herpetologists as they found reptiles new to science, and marine biologists in the Philippines as they made new deep-sea discoveries. I went scuba diving with marine archaeologists, scouring the depths of the South Pacific Ocean for downed World War II planes, and followed a mycologist on his quest to find rare medicinal mushrooms in the coastal islands of the Pacific Northwest. I've shadowed polar scientists at work in Antarctica and also in the dead of winter as they researched the effects of a warming climate. And when you're out there in the field with scientists and you're not actually doing the science, they might just put you on polar bear guard duty. I had to scare one away at one point. I think an explorer's heart also means having an always be learning approach to life and recognizing that the world, including people, are complex and nuanced. But you have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone and explore different cultures, ideas, and perspectives with an open mind. One of my first stories as a freelance journalist brought me here to the Arizona-Mexico border, where I went to cover a group of Americans who had gathered along the border fence to protest illegal immigration, which was just becoming the hot-button political issue it remains today. All day long, they would sit in pickup trucks with walkie-talkies and binoculars trained on the empty desert, looking for the movements of migrants whom they hoped to prevent from crossing the border. These were people with strongly held political and social positions, views which I personally did not share. In fact, their windshields boldly displayed a contempt for my sympathies. However, to do my job well as an independent journalist, to be both factual and fair, I had to step outside of my own point of view and into theirs. With both curiosity and respect, I sought to understand them more deeply. What motivated them? How have their communities been changed by the dynamics of immigration? What lay beneath their anger? What did they fear? Good journalism requires you to listen attentively, avoid making quick judgments, and approach people's stories with a mix of empathy and rigorous examination. I wasn't the only journalist hanging around the border. The biggest media outlets in the country were all there to cover this story. But I was reporting for a small internet publication at the time that no one had heard of. And unlike the others, I didn't have a travel budget to stay at a hotel each night. So I was camping out with these folks, and that actually helped me to earn their respect and their trust. Good journalism also demands a certain kind of humility. You can't think you have all the answers before you embark on your reporting. To try to uncover the complexities of the story on the southern border, I had to seek out different perspectives. I knocked on the doors of local ranchers. How did they feel about the migrants crossing their properties? On the Mexican side of the fence, I went out into the desert with a former smuggler turned humanitarian as he dropped caches of water and food for migrants. At night, I joined border agents on their patrols across the desert. My aim was to bring nuance and greater understanding to this contentious issue, which I believe is also one of journalism's virtues. As practice, it can illuminate the intricacies of people's lives and contribute to fostering connection in a fragmented society. In his book, Brooks writes about the skills people need to see and be seen on a personal level. I just mentioned some of these skills that journalists use to understand people. But we don't merely meet each other as unique individuals, Brooks points out. We meet each other as members of groups. We meet each other embedded in systems of power in which some groups have more and some groups have less. Our encounters are shaped by our historical inheritances. You can't get to know a person while pretending not to see ideology, class, race, faith, identity, or any of the other fraught social categories. If you want to know someone well, you have to see the person in front of you as distinct and never to be repeated as a distinct and never to be repeated individual. But you've also got to see that person as a member of their groups, and you've also got to see their social location, the way that some people are insiders and other people are outsiders, how some sit on the top of society and some are marginalized to the fringes. The trick is to be able to see each person on these three levels all at once. One of the most challenging environments I've worked in is, ironically, one of the most peaceful places on earth. The island of Tristan da Cunha lies all alone in the South Atlantic Ocean, 1,700 miles from the nearest major landmass. You can only reach the island by boat, a voyage that takes at least a week. 250 people live on Tristan, considered to be the world's most remote inhabited island. For more than 2 centuries, Tristan and its residents have been objects of fascination to outsiders. But many of the writers who'd ventured there had characterized the islanders as backward, along with other derisive names. Many Tristanians have long memories of these slights. And when I landed there to spend a month for National Geographic, some of them viewed me suspiciously. My host brother, I had to stay with a local family since there aren't any hotels on the island, kept his distance from me the entire time, convinced that I was out to write unkind things. To meet and be met by the islanders, I had to carry this awareness of how living on literally the fringes of global society had shaped the way Tristanians view certain outsiders. The same is certainly true in remote parts of the Amazon basin, where I've worked on many occasions with indigenous groups. As a white man from North America, I had to see and interact with people with a mind to the fraught history of missionaries, oil prospectors, foreign pharmaceuticals, in which many questions have been asked and much has been taken, and more. One of the happy developments in my career in recent years has been teaching these journalism skills, the skills that enable one to see and understand others on a deeper level, to high schoolers like yourselves. At the School of the New York Times Summer Academy, I take students onto the streets of New York City, to Jackson Heights, one of the world's most culturally diverse neighborhoods, where at least 160 languages are spoken. The students have to step outside of their comfort zone and navigate a foreign and unfamiliar environment. They have to meet and ask questions of strangers to try to uncover the complexities of the human experience. I love witnessing the students tap into their curiosity and engage people with attentiveness and open-heartedness. I also teamed up with some Black and Latino friends recently to launch a nonprofit organization called Camping to Connect. Our program guides young men of color from urban environments into the wilderness, often exposing them to the natural world for the first time. We teach them outdoor leadership and life skills, but more importantly, we create a space for boys to be vulnerable with one another, giving them the tools to create deeper and more meaningful social relationships. As our name says, we camp to connect. I'm proud to share that our work was recently featured on NBC Nightly News and the Today Show, and later I'll be screening Woodhood, a short documentary I produced about the program that explores themes of race, identity, and the power of nature to nurture and heal. Lastly, I want to share with you all my work on a global initiative called Portals. Portals are physical spaces equipped with immersive technology that allow people from distant locations to connect face to face and full body as if they're hanging out in the same room together. The Portals project first started as an experiment to connect ordinary Iranians living in Tehran with ordinary Americans living in New York City, and simply through a conversation allow each side to see past labels and forge a genuine human connection. When participants entered the portal, they were given an open-ended prompt to ask their counterpart abroad, what would make today a good day for you? To our surprise, these interactions could last up to 2 hours, as total strangers shared their feelings on subjects like sexuality, marriage equality, and their ailing parents. Many emerged from these conversations with tears in their eyes. Film directors in both countries talked about the challenges of upholding a creative vision when arrayed against economic, political, and social obstacles. A jazz musician in the US created a new musical piece with a classical Persian musician in Tehran. We've since placed portals in many other diverse locations around the world, from a refugee camp in Uganda to a public park in Mexico City. Portals allow people to express themselves through performance and play. They've brought people together who would never otherwise meet. I'm sure you all have seen Anthony Bourdain's shows where he sits around a dining table and shares a meal with people from a different culture. Well, I thought it would be cool to use portals to give people that same sort of shared human experience of connecting over a meal. So I want to leave you with a short video from one of the first meals that I hosted inside these portals. And as you watch it, think about the society we could create if people made more of an effort to have face-to-face conversations with people from different experiences, beliefs, and backgrounds. Doing so wouldn't just be personally rewarding, of course. It fosters connection, reduces division, and creates stronger, more compassionate communities. I believe it's how we can achieve a more just, equitable, and inclusive society. So let's have a look. Let's welcome everyone in the portal.
The camera is there.
Is that small?
That's small. Yeah, that's small. Can they see us? Hello.
Yes, everybody. Wave.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Harti.
My name is Piero.
My name's Sam.
My name is Kabengera.
Most of the food that we eat in Rwanda, they are fresh from the farm. So this is cassava, and then stew meat, sambusa, and chapati.
We also have some sambusa here. I have a question. Is it true that when it rains, everything stops?
There is two things about Rwanda that you learn. People are not scared of cars, and people are scared of rain.
What is your expectation when you come to Rwanda or to Africa?
The genocide is the only thing that I saw on TV. Like, that's the only way the country is represented.
We're having a normal life as people from USA. We go to work from Monday to Friday. We go to parties.
For me, America is about diversity.
Where people are able to have dreams come true. Trump was elected. We hear about him telling people to go back to their countries.
There is a lot of racism hidden in America.
The people who are at this table right now care a lot about other people.
I've heard that women have led Rwanda's economy the last 10 to 20 years.
They come with this perspective that if a woman can birth and organize the home, she can be able to lead the country. So you should come plan and come to visit and see how good we are.
I think we would love that.
Yeah. I just wanted to show you New York City here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow! Say hi to them from Rwanda. It was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for the connection.
Thank you for sharing food with us.
Bye.
Thank you all.